Hi, I'm Sam Moses, the creator of UltiROLL. I want to thank you for supporting our company, but more importantly, I want to let you know that your body thanks you for taking this first step towards making it feel better. Now, who am I? Well, for the last decade, I've worked as a corrective exercise practitioner. And that is simply to say, I use exercise to help my clients alleviate pain and improve function within their bodies. Now, through that experience, I've learned two different things. Number one, there are plenty of tools and techniques that the average person can use on their own time to restore their bodies. Sadly, the second thing I've learned is there is no system out there that explains that in an easy and complete way. And that's why I created UltiROLL. All of our education and our UltiRoller mobility kits are geared towards giving you simple and convenient tools to restore your body on your own time. Now, to give you a sense of what that looks like, today we're going to go over a low back pain mobility sequence. In this sequence, you're going to get some exposure to the three techniques that we use in the Ultimate Mobility System, okay? Foam rolling, stretching, and joint repositioning. And you'll also get some exposure to the tools that we use in our UltiRoller kits to help your body feel better. Now, before we get into the actual sequence itself, let's go through a simple explanation of why your low back might be hurting, and then we'll get into the drills to fix that. As you can see, we made a quick transition to the UltiROLL gym, which is where we film all of the content for our Ultimate Mobility System. Now, let's get into a quick and straightforward explanation of low back pain. As you can see, my terrible drawing has low back pain. Well, how can you tell? His low back's in red. So, what is causing that? Well, low back pain is often caused by a phenomenon called guarding. And guarding is simply when your nervous system interprets your spine as threatened by something, whether it's a herniation, bad position, nerve irritation. Your nervous system just feels that something is wrong with your spine, and its solution is to spasm the musculature around your spine. By doing so, it creates stability, but the reality is that spasm and that contraction of that low back tissue really hurts. If your low back is ever locked up, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the way that we're going to counter that tension in our low back is by using different mobility drills to get that tissue to release and calm down a little bit. The first drill we're going to use is called targeted pressure release, which is a specific and effective modality of foam rolling that you'll see we use all the time here at UltiROLL. For this drill, we are going to use the lacrosse ball out of our UltiRoller kit. Now, the lacrosse ball is a fantastic tool to get targeted pressure into specific areas of tissue that need it. So then the next question becomes, why are we putting pressure into tissue? Well, whether it is a foam roller, a lacrosse ball, a massage, when we put pressure into musculature, it gets that musculature to release. So, if our low back is nice and spasmed up because of that guarding phenomenon, we can use pressure, in this case via the lacrosse ball, to get that spasm to let go, which will feel better in itself, but then it also opens up some options in the way of stretching and joint repositioning techniques that you will see in a second. So, to start out, I want you to focus on two ideas. Number one, as we roll, we are never going to roll directly on the vertebrae of our spine. The area I want you to be in is going to be to the outside of the spine, above the pelvis and below the rib cage. So this kind of box of soft tissue in our low back. Number two, where we're going to start out as far as where we want to roll is within that box. We want to look for spots that are more tender. The tender spots of musculature that we feel and are a little bit more sensitive than the rest tell us that we're on a trigger point. Trigger points are locally spasmed fibers in a muscle that do not feel good and tell us that that part of the muscle is dysfunctional. So as you'll see, I'm going to roll through my low back, look for where it's a little bit more tender, and that tells me that that's the spot I should be on. So to start this mobilization out, we're going to take our lacrosse ball, we're going to lay on it with in that box of low back tissue that I just showed you. Now from here we have two options. We can either keep our feet on the ground, or if you want more pressure into that tissue, we can lift the leg up on the side that we're rolling. Now, once I am on that lacrosse ball, the next step is going to be looking for one of those tender spots. So right now, I'm on my low back and it's really not that bad. So I'm going to slowly roll through, left to right, up, down, just see where it's a little bit more tender. And right there, I just found a trigger point. I can tell because it's a little bit more sensitive than the rest of the tissue I just rolled through. Now that I found that trigger point, we're just going to stay on it. That's one of the biggest mistakes that you see in foam rolling is people go back and forth, back and forth. No. To get a lasting adaptation, we need to hold pressure on the spots that need it, not just go all over the place and not have that consistent stimulus. So now that I'm on that point, our next step is going to be to relax, okay? We have the propensity when we put pressure in the musculature, our nervous system wants to lock up. If we're fighting this ball by locking up and bracing against it, nothing's gonna change. So I'm gonna take a couple deep breaths and make sure that that low back is as relaxed as possible. The final step here is gonna be a contract-relax cycle. So you'll learn more about this in the UltiROLL system, but a contract-relax cycle is exactly what it sounds like. We're gonna contract the tissue that we're on for 5 seconds. So in this case, I'm gonna contract my low back by elevating my pelvis towards my rib cage on that side. So I'll contract 5 seconds for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then for the relax cycle, we're just gonna relax, let that pressure dissipate into our low back, and we will relax for 30 seconds. After that 30 seconds, we'll go back into the same 5-second contract, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, relax 30 seconds. A rule of thumb on contract-relax cycles is we want to get at least 3 contract-relax cycles per trigger point. Now, after those 3 cycles, you can either go look for different trigger points and go through the same exact 3, or if that spot feels like it needs more love, we can take more contract-relax cycles there, no problem. I want you to give this drill 3 minutes per side of your low back, and you can always do more, but baseline minimum 3 minutes per side. And then once we have that tissue released a little bit, we'll go into the following stretch to get a little bit of length, elongation of that tissue to further relieve that pain. Now that that low back tissue is calmed down, we can go into a stretch. As I'm sure you've heard before, stretching is about elongating musculature, which over time is going to create benefits in flexibility and range of motion. So, whereas that targeted pressure release focuses more on getting spasm to release, i.e. getting that contraction to let go, stretching is more about creating length in tissue, which over time increases flexibility and is going to make that low back feel good as well. So, the stretch we're going to go into today is a figure 4 hip drop stretch. So we'll start on our knees, sitting on our heels, and then I'm going to demonstrate on one side, but you're going to do it on both sides. So from this position, we're going to take one leg, and we're going to put the bottom of our foot to our knee. When I'm in this position, I am still supporting myself on the heel of this down leg, so I don't have any pressure over here. The left side of my pelvis and the left leg are just kind of hanging out. To get into this stretch, we're going to take 2 steps. Number 1, we're going to press our knee down towards the ground, and by extension, as we press that knee down towards the ground, the left side of our pelvis should start to drop towards the ground as well. And then number 2, we're going to reach overhead, which is going to get our rib cage to go up, also create a stretch in that low back. Now, from here, you should immediately feel that stretch in our low back, but if you don't, we can mess around with it. So right now I'm going straight to the side, not as much low back, I can lean a little bit forward, I can really work on getting that knee down, but the point is, I want you to feel this in that tissue that we just rolled. Now, the final step is, once I'm feeling that in that tissue, I got that stretch going, I want us to relax and breathe further into the stretch. So what I mean by that is, right now I'm at my end range of motion, I'm going to take a nice big deep breath, and on the exhale, we're going to see if we can get a little bit deeper, okay? You'll see that your breath is linked to how flexible you are, so if we get a nice big exhale and we're calm in our breathing, we should be able to get deeper and deeper into the stretch. So, big breath in, exhale, you see how my knee went down a little bit more, I can relax into the stretch further. Now, for each side, I want you to spend at least 2 minutes doing that. You can always spend more time though, so it's never going to be a bad idea to spend more time in that stretch. After we get 2 minutes per side, we get a little bit of lengthening in our low back, then we will finish off with a joint repositioning technique as follows. The final technique we're going to use is called joint repositioning. And out of everything we've done, I'm sure it's the one that you've had the least exposure to, so let's explain it a little bit. Well, joint repositioning is the idea that we tend to think of dysfunction in terms of muscles, right? A muscle is tight, a muscle has a trigger point, a muscle is dysfunctional. But in reality, muscles act on joints, and when we have a muscular imbalance, it can pull a joint out of position so that the joint surfaces are not articulating, i.e. moving across each other in an optimal way. Over time, that can create wear and tear on the joint surfaces themselves, which causes further pain. So the idea behind joint repositioning is we can use an external force. In our system we use a monster band to reintroduce a normal position into a joint and get it articulating optimally. So in this case, when we're talking about the low back, if our low back is tightened up and those muscles have shortened, well, what are we going to have happen? Well, the vertebrae of our spine that those muscles act on are going to get compressed. You can think of it like an accordion. As those muscles tighten up, the accordion gets smaller and smaller. So the joint repositioning technique we're going to use today is going to use this band to create some decompression, some traction to our spine, which is going to elongate it, get that accordion to expand back to normal. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to start with having our monster band anchored to something solid. Please make sure that whatever you're anchoring to is not going to break. I've been slapped in the face with these bands enough, believe me, it is not fun. Once we have the band anchored, the next step is going to be getting our foot walked up in that band. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put my foot through, I'm going to wrap the band around my foot once, and the only caveat here is please make sure that the band is running on the inside of the foot back to the anchor, not the outside. The last step here is we're going to put tension into the band. So this is a personal preference thing. You can either get a little bit of tension like I have right here, or if you're feeling like you need more adaptation, more stimulus, we can really wind this sucker up with a lot of tension. Totally up to you, your personal preference. Now, with that tension, the final step is going to be laying down and relaxing, just like everything else we've done. If we are bracing against this band, we're not going to get any decompression of the spine. But if we're nice and relaxed, well, that band's going to pull at our leg, which pulls at our pelvis, which pulls at our lumbar spine, and will give them some space in between. Finally, let's just breathe and relax. Same idea as stretching. Every exhale, let's see if we can relax a little bit more in our lower body, in our low back, and let that band take that leg towards that anchor more and more. For this drill, that is it. I am back in professional attire, which can only mean one thing. It is time to close out this sequence. Over the next 2 weeks, I want you to give your body some consistent exposure to these techniques. Now in our system, we advocate for 15 minutes per day, but guess what? That is a bare minimum. Okay, you can spend as much time as you want doing these drills and it's gonna have a positive effect. Now, as you're doing that, you have a couple of options. Number one, you can do all 3 drills every single time, shotgun blast approach, and guess what? Yes, that's gonna help your body. Or number 2, you can start to mix and match some of these drills to find the best combination to alleviate your low back pain. Totally up to you, that is your decision. Now, if you found this information helpful and you want to learn more about restoring your body from head to toe on your own time, please visit getultiroll.com. That's where you're going to find all of our educational guides as well as our UltiRoller mobility kits, which give you every tool you need to execute on those guides. In the meantime, I want to thank you again for supporting UltiRoll and ultimately for taking this first step towards making your body feel awesome. I look forward to continuing to help you, and until then, have a great day.